One of the biggest threats in business today is the weaponization of the US government against its own people. If you don't think this can happen to you, just wait until you hear this story. This is about a small business that was fined $508 billion by the government. Since this video is about COVID, let me start by saying that I am fully vaccinated. I've had 3 shots of the Pfizer vaccine, but I do recognize that the vaccine may not be right for everyone. More important than that, in America, we have something called freedom of speech. And if you don't like the government telling you to inject something into your body, you have the right to say that. During the height of the pandemic, the government began fining businesses that did not comply with COVID vaccinations. Specifically, they used the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, to issue the fines. The FTC is headed by someone named Lina Khan. We've talked about her before on this channel when she attacked Elon Musk during his takeover of Twitter. Lina has shown multiple examples of using the FTC as a weapon to attack political opponents of the Biden administration. Let us look at the timeline. COVID-19 was declared as a public health emergency by President Trump in the US in March 2020. The COVID-19 Consumer Protection Act was passed as part of the 2021 Consolidated Appropriations Act in December 2020, right before Biden became president. Just so you understand, the Appropriations Act is essentially budget approval for the year. So, within the massive budget bill, they attached this little section about COVID-19. This section makes it illegal for anyone to engage in a deceptive act or practice in or affecting commerce associated with the treatment, cure, prevention, mitigation, or diagnosis of COVID-19. It also gives authority to the FTC to go after these people. This allows the FTC to fine businesses that advertise anything related to COVID-19. The intention here was to stop people from selling fake COVID cures. Now, we don't want someone selling fake vaccines, for instance, but also the government wanted to make it very difficult for people to get any information about COVID that did not come from the government. This brings us to the legal case of business owner Dr. Eric Napute. He's a chiropractor in Missouri. Out of his clinic, he also sells vitamin pills. He sells 2 different pills, vitamin D and zinc. When the pandemic started, Eric was encouraging people to take vitamin D and zinc to help boost their immune system, especially people who did not want to take the vaccine. The FTC filed a lawsuit against Eric and fined him for providing illegal COVID cures. Eric was fined $43,792 for each incident. With more than 10 million violations, the total fine was over $508 billion. That's $500 billion. The fine is more than the annual GDP of the entire state of Missouri. How is he supposed to pay that? Biden announced the end of the official COVID emergency last month. Now that COVID is over, I think it's important to look back and evaluate what our government did to us. Here is a case where a chiropractor was just selling vitamins. There are a lot of scientific studies that show that vitamin D and zinc help boost the immune system. Dr. Napute was not saying anything untrue. He even told people to get the COVID-19 vaccine if they decided to do so. I cannot figure out what he was doing that gives the government the right to fine him. It appears the FTC was attempting to stamp out any alternative medical information about COVID and enforcing it with ridiculously large fines. I read through the actual FTC lawsuit. The basis of their legal argument is their claim that the scientific studies promoted by Dr. Napute about vitamin D and zinc were faulty. In the complaint, the FTC lists out 7 different scientific studies that were favorable to vitamin D and zinc that Dr. Napute provided his customers in marketing material. Eric would link to these studies and tell his customers to do their own research. The FTC then compares Eric's studies against the vaccine studies performed by the vaccine manufacturers. The FTC claims that the vaccine company's studies were more thorough, and therefore Eric's studies were wrong and qualified as false advertising. I find the FTC's lawsuit ridiculous and frivolous. The law requires that an action be deceptive for it to be illegal. Eric was not trying to deceive anybody. Can someone please explain what was deceptive here? He was not giving out false information. He was giving out scientific studies. And to be honest, the vaccine manufacturers were not performing the most thorough medical studies either. Let's talk about the vaccine manufacturers. Just to use one example, Moderna performed trials for the mRNA vaccine and published results claiming no serious adverse effects were found. No side effects, none. Well, when you look back at the data, it turns out that 14 out of the 550 in the study did suffer from health problems, including pneumonia, 3 miscarriages, and a heart attack. Most of the side effects reported were cardiovascular. Now, these side effects were not reported to the public because Moderna and the FDA decided that they did not think they were related to the vaccine. So, all these bad health problems happened right after people took the vaccine, and Moderna decided, we don't think it's related, so we're not going to tell anyone about it. I don't know about you, but I would have liked to have heard about these side effects. I don't understand why Moderna kept them hidden from the public. This Moderna trial is one of the vaccine studies the FTC is referring to in their legal complaint against Dr. Eric Napute. The FTC is saying the Moderna study is one of the good studies, and Dr. Napute's studies are the bad studies. Is it possible that it is the vaccine manufacturers that are the ones being deceptive and not Dr. Napute? In fact, leave a comment down below this video and let me know who you think is being more deceptive here, the vaccine manufacturers or Dr. Eric Napute. Now, I don't want to get into the discussion about whether the vaccines were good or bad. All I am saying is this business owner should not be fined $500 billion. Now, maybe you don't agree that people should take vitamins, but just because you disagree with Dr. Napute does not mean that he should pay a fine. In fact, I would argue that Eric probably saved people's lives by having them take their vitamins. Do you know how hard it is to get people to take their vitamins? This man is a hero. He should not be paying anything. Unfortunately, because of this lawsuit, Dr. Eric Napute's life has been destroyed. He has been canceled. He was dropped by multiple banks, his insurance company, and multiple online platforms. This man's name is restricted on Facebook. The government tried to take away his medical license. He lost 2 businesses and has spent years fighting this case in court. He has spent over $4.5 million in legal fees. This is how the weaponization of government works. If you are targeted, the government will make up a false allegation, give you some ridiculous fine, and your life will be destroyed trying to fight it. It is also worth noting that Dr. Napute is a very vocal critic of the Biden administration. He is one of these people who would go on conservative radio shows and talk about politics. This is someone who is an enemy of the Biden administration. So it's entirely possible that this lawsuit has absolutely nothing to do with COVID and everything to do with silencing a critic of the government. They want to send a message to all the doctors out there that if they speak up against the government, this is what's going to happen to you. Dr. Eric Napute has now turned around and is countersuing the government for the same amount, $508 billion. The FTC is scared that they made a mistake and has offered to settle. Eric will not disclose the settlement offer, but says that it is not as much as Elon Musk has, but it's a lot more than the average millionaire has. But Dr. Napute has refused to settle because the government will only agree to a settlement if Dr. Napute signs a gag order. So to get the money, Dr. Napute cannot talk about the case for the rest of his life. He must let everyone continue to think that he did something illegal. He finds this unacceptable, and the case is set for a jury trial on August 21st, 2023. It is clear from the facts in this case that this is abuse of power by Lina Khan and the FTC. We now have two blatant examples of abuse of power with both Dr. Napute and Elon Musk. Now, if you remember, President Trump was impeached on the allegation of abuse of power. If Congress is going to impeach the Republicans, they also need to be fair and impeach the Democrats. We need to send a message to these bureaucrats that it is unacceptable to weaponize the government against the American people. We need to impeach Lina Khan for abuse of power and remove her from office. These are such extreme and blatant examples. In fact, I cannot think of a more blatant example of abuse of power than fining a chiropractor $508 billion for selling vitamins. Any leader in Washington that is abusing their power needs to be impeached. We should be impeaching everybody because they are not going to stop weaponizing the government against the American people until we do something. I hope that Congress takes action, and I wish Dr. Napute the best of luck in his lawsuit this August. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think that Lina Khan should be impeached? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Zach from Wolves in Finance. Let's go out and make some money.